Hey everyone, how's it going? Matthew Bailey here, and welcome to my picks for the top 15 best movies of 2019. Yep, this is the first time that I've done a video where it's 15 best movies and not just 10, with a few honorable mentions. And that's because I did see a lot more movies this year than I did last year and the year before that. So get ready because this is one hell of a list. But before I get into it though, I would like to list a few honorable mentions. And that is Pokemon Detective Pikachu, the Lego Movie Part 2, and I believe the other one was the Addams Family. Those are movies that I thought were okay. They didn't disappoint me. I thought they were pretty interesting. But there were 15 movies that I've seen this year that were much better than these three. So let's get into my picks for the top 15 best films of 2019. So as you can see, at number 15 I have Abominable. Now this was definitely a movie that wasn't originally on my radar this year, and I heard about it. I heard that it was by the same company that made the How to Train Your Dragon franchise, and I gotta say, this movie did not disappoint. I'm gonna be totally honest, this movie did not disappoint. I thought it was a little better than the Addams Family movie, and that's why that was considered an honorable mention. This was a heartfelt, warming type movie. I mean, the way that they told this story about a Yeti who was taken from his home, and this young girl named Yi wants to try to bring him home, and her along with some other friends befriend the Yeti and try to help him get home. I thought this was a heartfelt type movie that really spoke to me a little bit. I mean, it did not disappoint. I have to be honest. This movie did do better than Addams Family, in my opinion. And I definitely thought this was a good movie, and I am glad I decided to see it, and I wasn't really wasting my time. And I'm gonna be honest, I really enjoyed this movie, and I'm not sure if they're gonna possibly make a sequel, because I mean, it's been out for a while, so I'm not sure if this is really spoiling it, but even the ending of the movie sort of possibly hinted at a sequel, but who knows what they'll do with this movie. But anyways, for number 15, I have to go with Abominable. Yeah, so at number 14, as you can see, I have Captain Marvel. Now, I'm going to be honest, I thought this was an okay addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It did sort of introduce us to a young Samuel L. Jackson / Nick Fury, and how he became the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and how he became part of this whole universe, and he knew there was other potential threats out there, and we even sort of get in this movie how he lost his eye, and I'm not really going to say it, but it's been out for a while. I'm sure you all know how he lost his eye, but if you haven't seen this movie yet and you want to know how he loses his eye to where he has the eye patch, you should go see this movie. But I gotta say, I thought it was an okay movie. I know there was a lot of controversy, I think is the best word for it, as to who, when they cast Brie Larson as Carol Danvers, and there was something about when they were filming Endgame as well as this, that she was not having a good time with her coworkers or something, or her fellow cast members. It doesn't matter. I thought she did an okay job, and plus there's already speculation that she could have a sequel in the future of the MCU, because she is an inspiring leader, just like Captain America was when they did the first Avengers movie. And I mean, who else could possibly lead the new team of Avengers in the future of the MCU? There's been speculation it could be Captain Marvel. There's been speculation it could be SpiderMan, depending on how their sharing arrangement carries out. But it could be anybody. So, and honestly, I mean, Captain Marvel was, I think, a leader of the Avengers at one point in the comics, so it makes sense if they give her a sequel. But this movie was entertaining for me. It did not disappoint. But I'm putting it this low on the list because there were a lot of other movies that came out this year that I really enjoyed, but for number 14, I'm going with Captain Marvel. Yeah, so at number 13, I have Jumanji 3: The Next Level. I gotta be honest, I really enjoyed this movie. I saw it with my good friend Matthew Davis Media. If you can check out his channel, he should be listed under my featured channels and on my homepage. But yeah, so Jumanji: The Next Level, I thought was a pretty entertaining movie, and I know it just came out a week ago, but I'm not gonna try to spoil anything. All I can say though is that it could be possible that they could still continue the franchise based on the mid-credit scene that was featured in the movie, and it could be going back to its old roots as to what happened in the first movie. Is all I'm saying. But I gotta say, I was really happy with this movie. I love the humor that was featured in this movie. I gotta be honest, it was a lot funnier than the second movie, if I'm being totally honest. And honestly, Danny DeVito and Danny Glover's characters in this movie are the ones that make this movie funny. And I mean, what more could someone like me ask for when it comes to making the third movie in the Jumanji series? And I can't wait to see what they do with this series if they decide to continue the franchise. But number 13 is going to go to Jumanji: The Next Level. Yeah, so at number 12, I have Spider-Man: Far From Home. I gotta be honest though, this is, in my opinion, the one of the best Spider-Man movies they've ever brought to the big screen. They did a good job portraying Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, in this movie, and yeah, it was pretty crazy. I mean, a lot of people were, because in the trailers it looked like he was like teaming up with Spider-Man, and I mean, we all know the story of how he truly was evil, and he was tricking everyone with his illusion tech, what he does best. However, the whole thing about him being a past Stark employee was a bit of a shocker. Like, I was not expecting that. I guess they did change up his origin story a little bit, but this, the fact that this movie came out right after Avengers Endgame and sort of showed the aftermath of what happened with that movie, and specifically tying in with Spider-Man and what his people did after the snap. And I gotta be honest, this movie was pretty good. And I know after about a month after the movie got released, there was a whole backlash of people getting frustrated that Sony was thinking about pulling Spider-Man from the MCU after this, but then they put him back, and now there is a third movie in development, and it's going to pick up exactly where this one left off with the supposed mid-credits scene that happened. And I'm really excited for it, because if that movie does well, then they might actually decide to give Spider-Man, or the rights to Spider-Man, back to Marvel, which is what they should do, to be honest. I mean, Sony already has so many other properties. Why can't they just give Spider-Man back to Marvel? I mean, this movie did such a good job, and if the third movie does as good as this one but better, then that just proves to you that they need to give the rights back. So I'm curious to see what will happen. But yeah, Spider-Man: Far From Home, I really enjoyed this movie, and I have a feeling the third movie's title is going to have some form of the word home in it, and I'm really excited for this about this movie. But for number 12, I gotta go with Spider-Man: Far From Home. Yep, so right before the top 10 at number 11 is the live-action Aladdin. I honestly thought this was a pretty good live-action interpretation of the film, of the original animated 1992 film, and I know a lot of people were skeptical about Will Smith taking on the role of the genie after after the death of Robin Williams, and because a lot of people thought he couldn't replace him, which I gotta agree, he definitely can't replace the funny comedy of how Robin Williams did the genie, but I still thought he did a good job putting his own spin on the character, and a lot of people also said with how bad Jafar was in this movie, I thought he did okay. And I even heard that there's already talks about doing a sequel to this, and even a prequel about how the genie became the one that got trapped in the bottle to begin with. But the whole thing about there being a sequel in the works, I'm really excited for it. Now, it's not going to be an exact interpretation of the sequel that was to the original animated film, The Return of Jafar. There could be a new take on this sequel. I mean, we might get some elements from what happened in the sequel from the original sequel into this sequel, but it might give us a whole new perspective on what happened in that movie, and like we might not see the whole thing that about the pair of Diago turning to their side, and I mean we could see the return of Jafar, but unlike what they did with the straight to DVD animated sequel, they might actually call it Aladdin 2, The Return of Jafar. Now that's an okay title. I'm okay with them referring to it as that and not what they just said in the original movie, where they just called it The Return of Jafar. I mean, they even though they did make a third movie, or called Aladdin and the King of Thieves, even though that was considered the third movie, a lot of people thought it was the second one because of the fact that it did have the name Aladdin in the titles, and The Return of Jafar didn't. So, and plus the movie mostly focused on Jafar and not Aladdin. So, but yeah, I gotta say this movie was pretty good, and I gotta say I don't care what people are saying about how bad Jafar did in this movie. I thought he did okay. But for number 11, I gotta go with Aladdin. Yeah, so kicking off the top 10 is How to Train Your Dragon 3, The Hidden World. Now, I honestly was really excited for this film because it was the last film in the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy, and I love the first two movies, even though I only started my channel 2 years after the last one got released. But I gotta say, this movie was a good way to end off the series. I mean, even though they actually technically released another 30-minute short film that takes place after this movie earlier this month called How to Train Your Dragon Homecoming, which is sort of like SpiderMan Homecoming, but basically the whole short film was about took place 10 years after the ending of this movie, where both Hiccup and Astrid have now had kids named Nothing and Zephyr, and Zephyr is apparently afraid of dragons, and Nothing is sort of like a little bit dumb, and so he just does whatever he does or says the first thing that comes to his head, and they put on this little play that shows the children of Newburgh how humans and dragons became friends, and he did it to like teach Zephyr about how he met Toothless, but going back to How to Train Your Dragon 3 to Hidden World, I really enjoyed this movie. I gotta admit, I loved the fact that and this movie literally came out right before I left my very first job at McDonald's back in February this year. And this is before I moved into this new apartment. But, yeah, so How to Train Your Dragon 3 was a pretty good way to end off the series. And, I mean, who knows what they could do for the future of the series. They could create, like, another show that features Hiccup's kids. I mean, you never know what can happen. But, I gotta say, I really enjoyed this movie, and I can't wait to see what DreamWorks has in store for the upcoming years, not including next year, because I know there's 2 movies that come out next year that not a lot of people are getting into, specifically the sequel to Trolls, which I know is probably not going to do so well, but for number 10, I gotta go with How to Train Your Dragon 3: The Hidden World. So, at number 9, I have Shazam. This is the latest installment in the DC Extended Universe, or in this case, the DCEU, sort of like the MCU, but with the DC heroes. And this is about, basically the movie is about a young boy named Billy Batson who comes to terms with his newfound powers, where every time he says the word Shazam, he transforms into the famous DC version of Captain Marvel. And he not only does he learn the true importance of using his powers for the good of mankind, but he also learns the true meaning of family, and he helps along with his foster siblings. Him along with his siblings defeat this Dr. Sarbana, who is being influenced by the 7 deadly sins. I thought this was a pretty good and even funny movie at that. And I already have heard talks about there being a Black Adam movie and even a sequel to Shazam. I'm not sure if the sequel will feature Black Adam or not, which I heard is being rumored to be played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, which I'm really excited to see how he does in that role. But anyways, I thought this movie was pretty good. Like I said, it was funny at the same time, and I can't wait to see what they do next. But for number 9, I have Shazam. So at number 8, we have Alita: Battle Angel. So honestly, I thought this was a pretty entertaining movie. I had never heard of the comic book series based on Alita, but I saw the movie and I thought, oh, this movie actually was pretty good, especially because I think it had the same person it was produced by James Cameron, who directed the Avatar movie back in 2009, which is one of my all-time favorite movies of all. And he like I said, he was the producer, I think, to this movie, just like he was for but he has done a lot of directing jobs as well. Like I said, Avatar, Titanic, and he even has this future Avatar sequels coming out, which I'm really excited for. But he was attached to this film in some form of way, and I thought this movie was pretty cool. I mean, I heard there might be a sequel to it, and I'm really excited to see how they interpret that. But can't wait to see what the future holds for movies like this. But for number 8, I'm going with Alita: Battle Angel. So at number 7, we have Toy Story 4. I gotta say, this movie was pretty surprising. I mean, when I heard that they were doing a 4th installment to the Toy Story franchise, I mean, I saw the 3rd movie and how that movie ended, and I thought, man, I felt like it was a good way to end the series. But then I hear there's a 4th installment, which introduced a bunch of new characters and even showed us the return of an old character who never showed up in Toy Story 3, known as Bo Peep, as you can sort of see from the poster. We get to see her classic return, and the movie mostly focuses on the continuation of the story of Woody and how he's coping with not only having Bonnie as the new kid, and how he tries to help another new toy known as Forky, who during the movie is the most important thing to her, and he realizes then that he, just like Bo Peep apparently did throughout all the years that she's been away, and that's why she never appeared in the 3rd movie. She helps Woody realize that there's more to life than just being in a kid's room, and and I'm not going to spoil the movie, but all I can say is that this movie was pretty heartfelt. I really enjoyed how this movie went, and there's been speculation that there could still be a continuation with another film. I mean, who knows? They could still continue the franchise who knows? But for number 7, I'm gonna go with Toy Story 4. So at number 6, we ended off with Frozen 2. Honestly, I saw this movie on that Thursday night of the 21st of November when it came out, and this was right after I got off of work too. I got to see the movie for myself, and I gotta say, as great as the first one was, I really enjoyed this movie. I didn't get to see the first Frozen movie in theaters. I had to wait until it was out on DVD, and when I saw the first movie, I thought it was pretty good. So when I heard that they were making a sequel, I thought, man, this movie seems like it would really be good. And so I went to see the movie, and it did not disappoint. I really feel like there could still be a continuation with a third film, but I still liked how the second one turned out. I mean, I'm trying not to spoil it because it's only been out for a few weeks now, but yeah, this movie was really great. Disney, you have done it again, and you basically dominated the box office this year with all your releases, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for future Disney movies, and if they might ever come up with any original stories again. But for number 6, I'm going with Frozen 2. Alright, now kicking off the top 5, at number 5 is the live-action Lion King movie. I'm gonna be honest, I know there was a lot of people out there who didn't think this was as good because of the fact that it basically did the same scenes and the same story as the animated classic, and I'm gonna be honest, I was a little skeptical about it too, but the fact that they did make it to where the animals were real looking instead of just the regular animated versions, I thought it was pretty good. I mean, I felt like it was a lot better, if I'm being honest. I mean, I even gave it a 5 out of 5 rating in my review, and I gotta be honest, this was an okay interpretation of it, especially with James Earl Jones coming back after almost 20 years since the release of the original movie to once again voice Mufasa. And I'm really excited that they did that. And I'm really excited for most of these live action Disney remakes. I mean, even for some of the more upcoming future ones, like, I'm a little skeptical about the Mulan live action one, but I know for a fact at some point the following year in 2021, there is going to be a live action adaptation of The Little Mermaid, and I'm really excited for that. But I mean, we'll see what happens. But for number 5, I gotta go with The Lion King. And coming in at number 4 is another movie I wasn't originally planning on seeing. In fact, it wasn't even on my radar, and that is Blinded by the Light. This is the movie based on a true story about a young man named I already forgot his name, but Jared, I believe was his name. And this is about him being inspired by the words and music of Bruce Springsteen, and how he became a writer, and he was able to go to the U.S., visit his hometown, and he helped his family learn that he needs to follow his own path, do what he wants to do, not be stuck in another century like his dad originally was doing during the movie. And it makes you realize that you're not alone in the world. Other people go through tough times too, and this movie sort of tells you just how you can keep pushing forward in life, never give up on your dreams, and do what you want to do. And I really liked this movie. I really did. So I'm really excited that they made this movie, and but for number 4, I'm going with Blinded by the Light. And kicking off my top 3 best films of the year, as you can see, this may come as a shock to you, is Joker. I actually saw this once again with my good friend Matthew Davis Media, and I gotta be honest, I remember how the Joker was portrayed in the Dark Knight movies, and the fact that this was the origin story of how the famous Arthur Fleck became the infamous Joker villain, who's the infamous Batman villain that we all know and love. I gotta say, he did an okay job in this movie. I mean, sure, I was a little nervous with all the guns and violence that was going on in the movie, but this was a good origin story. I have to admit, it showed us how the famous Arthur Fleck became the classic comic book villain Joker, and it even sort of showed us how it sort of hinted to us what might happen with, or how Bruce Wayne was inspired to be Batman. And I'm really excited that this movie was made, and I even heard that based on how great it did, how it was the first R-rated movie to get over $1 billion in the box office worldwide. Now there's been speculation that not only could they make a sequel to the movie, but if they ever decide to bring the Joker back into the DCEU, they could use Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. But he's not the only DC villain that they're thinking about doing an origin story on. They're doing the same thing with other villains too from the DCEU. Like, I heard that I don't know if this. I think this is part of the DCEU, but there's a Birds of Prey movie that mostly focuses on Harley Quinn, and that I heard takes place after the Suicide Squad movie, but who knows what's gonna happen with that. But I guess we'll find out. But a lot of other DC villains that there have been rumors that could be made into into solo films and also origin films is like Lex Luthor, Deathstroke, all those villains. And I'm really curious to see how that turns out. But for number 3, I gotta go with Joker. Yeah, so unfortunately, Avengers Endgame is not at number 1, but it is at number 2, which I gotta say, I'll give it credit. It was a really good way to end off the Infinity Saga in the MCU. We get the final confrontation with the Avengers facing off against Thanos. And I love how they first hinted at him being the big bad of that saga during the first Avengers film, which I actually just finished watching not too long ago. And the fact that it all led up to them finishing what they started with him from Infinity War. And I'm really excited for the next few movies and the next phases of the MCU, because not only are we going to get a new big bad, 2 big bads actually, one ground level and one galactic level villain, like Thanos, but we are going to be getting introduced to newer characters that are going to be brought into the MCU, like the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, Deadpool, a lot of characters. I heard even She-Hulk could be making film appearances, Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, a lot of characters. So I'm really excited for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I heard recently that the next saga of films is going to be solely based within the multiverse. The multiverse, it plays a key factor in the next saga of films, so I'm really curious to see how that turns out. But unfortunately, for number 2, I have Avengers Endgame. That's right. A movie called Harriet is my number 1. Best movie of 2019. I gotta be honest, this was a movie that, again, was not on my radar. I had no idea this was even coming out until around the time that movies like Terminator and stuff were coming out. I saw this poster, and we got a lot of people getting tickets for it, and at first I'm like, wait, what movie is that? And then I realized that it was based on the true story of Harriet Tubman and how she became one of the most famous women in American history during the Civil War to free over 750 slaves to freedom during the Combahee River Raid. She became a famous woman on the as a conductor on the Underground Railroad, leading slaves to freedom before the Civil War even began, and how she was born into slavery herself and how she escaped it. This was a pretty good movie, I have to admit it. I was not expecting... I had no idea this movie was even coming out, and then when I saw it and realized how well they told her story on the big screen, because this is their first time at Bad telling her story on the big screen, and I gotta tell you, they nailed it. They really nailed it to where 90 to 95% of the story was actually true based on stuff that happened in her life. Now, but there was also a lot of controversies about the actress who played the main character, Cynthia Erivo, because she wasn't fully an African American woman. She was just an English lady, and I gotta be honest, even though she was an English person, her accent, she was able to change it during the scenes that she was filming, and they even made her skin a lot darker to make it seem like she was an African American woman, and I thought they did an okay job. I mean, a lot of the stuff that was interpreted in the film really showed her story, how she escaped slavery, and it showed you what she did in her life and how she changed the nation, the American nation, during the Civil War. She helped put an end to slavery, and she helped with the women's suffrage movement, and she did a lot of stuff in her time. And I gotta say, this movie really made a difference when I saw it, and I feel like this is my #1 movie of 2019. So there you have it, everybody. That's my top 15 best films of the 2019 year. I do have some other videos coming out pretty soon. Like, I might do a and most anticipated films list of 2020. I might also do some top things videos based on the best animated and best worst animated films of the 2010s. In my opinion, I'll do I might even do a video talking about my favorite movies from every single year up till this year. So you'll probably see Harriet on that list again. But there's gonna be a lot of videos coming out. So I hope to see y'all there. But as for now, I will see all you dudes in the next video.